I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Jake, and I've been with my wife Emily for almost 6 years. We met in college, and everything seemed perfect at first. She was smart, funny, a little bitchy sometimes, but in a way that I found kind of charming. We got engaged last year, and everyone was excited about our wedding. We had plans to settle down, start a family, the usual stuff. But lately, I'd noticed some weird signs. She'd be secretive about her phone, hiding it when I came into the room, canceling plans at the last minute, and just acting distant in ways I didn't understand. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe she was just stressed or busy. But deep down, I started feeling like something was off. It all started to unravel about 3 weeks ago. I was cleaning up her side of the closet, nothing unusual, just normal stuff, when I found a small, crumpled receipt tucked behind her shoes. It was from a coffee shop downtown, but that wasn't what caught my eye. What really hit me was the date, 2 days before I flew out of town for a work trip, and the name on the receipt, Tom, my best friend. My stomach dropped. I froze there, holding the paper, trying to piece it all together. Tom and I have been friends since college, and I trust him implicitly. I never thought in a million years he'd do something like this. I knew Emily and Tom had always been a little too close, but I never thought they'd actually cheat. I didn't say anything right away. I just put the receipt back and kept pretending everything was fine. But the seed was planted. I started noticing other things, her phone buzzing constantly, her being overly defensive when I asked about her whereabouts, her making excuses about why she couldn't come over or why she was busy with work. It was like she was trying to hide something, and I felt more and more like I was losing my mind trying to connect the dots. Still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I told myself I was paranoid, that I was overthinking. But then, last weekend, the bombshell dropped. I was supposed to meet her for dinner after work, but she called me an hour before and said she had to stay late at the office. I didn't think much of it, but something in her tone was off. She sounded nervous, maybe even guilty. When I got home, I decided to check her phone, just a quick peek, I told myself. I wasn't snooping, just looking for reassurance. I unlocked it, and there it was. A string of messages between her and Tom late at night, filled with flirtation, talk about meeting up and can't wait to see you again, and this secret can't stay hidden forever. My heart sank. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. That's when I knew for sure. Emily had lied to me about where she was, about her plans, about everything. I confronted her that night. I didn't hold back. I showed her the messages, the receipt, everything. Her reaction was so infuriating. She rolled her eyes, called me paranoid, said I was just insecure, that Tom and I had no idea what we were talking about. She called me jealous, accused me of destroying her reputation. And then, when I pushed her further, she started crying, saying I was overreacting, that she'd never do something so stupid, and that Tom was just a friend who wanted to help her with work. But I knew better. I could see right through her bullshit. The woman I thought I knew was lying through her teeth. The betrayal cut deep, and I was furious and devastated at the same time. But more than anything, I was hurt, deeply hurt, that she'd do this right before our wedding, right before our future together. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The image of those messages, her dismissive attitude, Tom's betrayal, it all kept swirling in my head like a tornado. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I didn't see it coming, how someone I trusted so much could just throw it all away with a lie. The worst part was feeling so stupid for not noticing earlier. I was furious at Tom, but mostly I was furious at Emily. I had always tried to see the best in her, to trust her implicitly, and she just stomped all over that with her bitchy, manipulative ways. I knew I had to do something, something that would make her regret what she'd done. I wasn't about to let her get away with it, especially not right before our wedding day. I started planning my revenge, and honestly, it was almost like an obsession. I wanted her to feel the pain she'd caused me, to see how much she'd hurt me with her lies. That night, I stayed up late, going through her phone, her social media, even her emails. I wanted to gather as much evidence as I could, something that would hit her hard if I decided to call her out publicly or just walk away altogether. In the days that followed, she kept acting like nothing had happened. She'd throw on her bitchy attitude, say she was overworked, or that I was overreacting, like it was some big joke. But I saw through her every little smirk, every dismissive glance. I also started noticing her talking to Tom more often, texts, quick meetings, even a few late-night calls. She'd lied about meeting friends or going out of town for family visits. Meanwhile, I was drowning in this betrayal, feeling more isolated than ever. I couldn't believe I was about to marry someone who'd cheat on me with my best friend. It felt like my whole world was collapsing. I decided I'd wait for the right moment, then strike back. I wanted her to see that I knew everything. It was going to be a slow burn, a kind of revenge that would make her regret every second of her betrayal. I knew she loved to act like she was the smarter one, the one in control, but I was going to take that control away from her. I was going to make her see how much she'd screwed up, how far I was willing to go to make her pay. And trust me, I wasn't planning to just walk away. Not with someone who lied and cheated and thought she could just get away with it. No, I had a plan. One that would hit her where it hurts and make her realize she'd lost everything. In the meantime, I kept my cool around her, pretending everything was normal. I didn't want her to suspect I was onto her, but inside, I was plotting every move, every word, every opportunity to catch her in her lies again. I also reached out to a couple of friends I trust, others who knew Emily and her manipulative ways. I needed backup, not just emotionally but practically. I knew once I finally made my move, there'd be no going back. This wasn't just about breaking up, it was about sending a message. I wanted her to feel the pain, the guilt, the shame of what she'd done. The worst part was I still loved her, at least I thought I did. That love was getting twisted into anger and a burning desire for revenge. I kept asking myself if I could forgive her, if I even wanted to. But deep down, I knew this was beyond forgiveness. She had crossed a line, and if I didn't do something now, I'd be the fool who let her destroy everything we built. So I stayed patient, kept gathering evidence, and waited for my moment. I knew that when I finally exposed her, it wouldn't just be about her cheating. It would be about her arrogance, her lies, her bitchy attitude, and her complete lack of respect for what we had. I didn't want her to get away with it, not without paying a price. The day I decided to finally confront her wasn't planned, at least not exactly. It just kind of happened. Was at work pretending to be normal, but I kept checking my phone, waiting, watching for that one sign, that one mistake she'd slip up on. I knew she'd be at the cabin with Tom during the holidays, probably thinking she was so clever, hiding it all from me. She kept telling everyone she was visiting family, but I knew better. I had proof now, enough to blow everything wide open. I just needed the right moment. That evening, I came home early from work, and the house was eerily quiet. No sign of her. I checked her phone again. There were more messages from Tom talking about how they couldn't wait to see each other again, how this was gonna be their little secret. I could feel my fists tight. The rage boiled over. I grabbed her phone, looked through her recent calls, her texts. I wanted to see if she'd slipped up again, and sure enough, there was a message from Tom. "Can't wait to finally be alone with you tonight." That's when I snapped. I slammed her phone down on the table and called her. No answer. I called her again, and her voice finally answered, cold. Dismissive. "Where are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She denied everything. "I told you I was at my sister." Stop being paranoid. I told her I knew she was lying, that I had evidence, and that she'd been cheating on me with Tom. Her reaction was classic Emily, shrill, defensive, full of bullshit. She started calling me crazy, saying I was spying on her, that I was ruining everything. But I didn't care. I'd had enough. I told her I wanted her to come home right then, but she refused, throwing a fit on the phone. "You're overreacting, Jake. You always do. You're just jealous because Tom is better in bed than you ever were." That hit me like a punch. Her voice, that bitchy tone, she was trying to gaslight me, make me doubt myself. I knew then I had to be even more ruthless. If she wanted to keep lying and playing her games, I'd expose her fully. I told her I was done playing the fool and that I'd be waiting for her when she got back, but I wasn't going to hold my breath. While she was gone, I started mapping out my next move. I wasn't just going to confront her with the evidence. No, I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to see what she'd lost. I needed her to understand that I wasn't some fool she could manipulate forever. I started making copies of her messages, saving screenshots, even recording some of her calls when she didn't know I was listening. I'd learned that Emily loved to deny everything, spin her stories, lie to my face. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not this time. When she finally came back, the house was cold, tense. She looked at me like I was something disgusting she'd stepped in. Her bitchy attitude was even worse now, like she thought she was above me, untouchable. I kept my composure, but inside I was seething. I just stared at her, waiting for her to slip up again. And she did. She started rambling about how Tom was just a friend, how she didn't mean for it to happen, but her voice was shaky, her eyes darting around. I knew she was lying. I told her I had everything, every message, every call, every secret meeting. Her face went pale. She tried to deny it, but I pressed harder. That moment, I realized I had to decide what I was going to do, whether I just cut her loose or make her pay for this. I was so tired of the lies, the betrayal, her bitchy attitude and manipulations. But I also knew I couldn't just brush this off. This was a line she crossed, and I had to show her she couldn't get away with it. I told her I'd be leaving, that I needed space to think. The look in her eyes was priceless, anger, fear, maybe even regret. But I knew she'd try to manipulate her way out of this somehow. I wasn't going to let her. Not anymore. I needed her to understand that I wasn't the fool she'd thought I was, that I was more than capable of destroying her little game, and I was just getting started. After I told Emily I was leaving for a while to think everything through, she got even more bitchy, if that was possible. She started calling me names, telling me I was overreacting, that I was crazy for blowing things out of proportion. Honestly, her tone made my skin crawl. She threw herself on the bed, acting like the victim, like I was the one pulling some sick stunt. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I'd seen enough of her lies, enough of her manipulative bullshit. I knew I had to get out of there and figure out my next move without her controlling the situation. I grabbed my keys, told her I was going to stay at a hotel for a few nights, just to clear my head. She sneered at me, saying I was overreacting, that she'd never do something so stupid, as if I was the one losing it. I just shook my head and left. As I drove away, I kept thinking about everything. How I'd been blind for so long, how I'd trusted her, how she'd lied about being with her family during the holidays when she was screwing my best friend. The anger and betrayal hit me all at once. It was like a punch in the stomach, but also a kind of relief. I was done with her lies. That night I stayed in a cheap motel, but I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was her bitchy attitude, her excuses, and that sick feeling in my gut. I kept replaying the moments when I'd caught her in her lies, how her voice had been so dismissive, so condescending. I realized I needed concrete proof, something undeniable if I was going to do this right. I started going through my phone again, digging through old messages, photos, anything that could help me prove she'd been cheating and lying all this time. I knew Emily well enough by then. She loved her manipulations, her gaslighting, making me doubt myself. But I wasn't going to let her win that way anymore. Over the next couple of days, I reached out to a few of my friends, people who knew Emily and her manipulative ways. They all told me stories that confirmed my suspicions, how she'd always been a little bitchy, how she'd lied about her whereabouts, how she was always secretive and sneaky. It helped me feel less alone, more certain that I wasn't crazy. I decided I'd catch her in her lies one last time in a way that would leave her no room to deny it. I started planning a final showdown, one that would blow her entire world apart. Meanwhile, Emily kept texting me, trying to act like everything was normal. She call, leaving those fake, sweet messages, pretending to be worried or upset. But I could see through her bullshit now. I knew she was just trying to manipulate me again to make me feel guilty or confused. I didn't fall for it. Instead, I gathered every piece of evidence I could find, screenshots, recordings, more receipts. I was building a case, not just to confront her, but to finally make her understand she had crossed a line she couldn't come back from. The day I decided to come back home, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to lay everything out in the open, her lies, her cheating, her manipulations. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some naive husband-to-be anymore. I'd had enough of her bitchy attitude, her lies, her deflections. I was done playing her game. When I returned, I was cold, focused, and ready to end this chapter of my life. I didn't care about her tears or her excuses anymore. All I cared about was standing my ground, making her face the truth, to show her she'd lost her control over me. And I was just getting started. When I came back home, everything felt different. The house was quiet, no warm welcome, no fake smiles. Emily was inside, acting like nothing had happened, but I saw the subtle signs of her panic, fidgeting, avoiding eye contact, that bitchy smirk trying to cover her nerves. I knew she was scared because she knew I had all the evidence, and I was finally ready to make her face the consequences. I didn't walk in with anger or shouting, not yet. I wanted her to think I was calm, in control, and that I had her cornered. I started by laying out everything I had found: messages, receipts, recordings. I didn't hold back. I dumped it all on the table. Her face turned pale, her real attitude slipping through her perfect facade. She tried to deny it at first, calling me paranoid, accusing me of spying, saying I was just jealous. But I wasn't having any of her lies anymore. I kept pressing her, showing her the undeniable proof of her betrayal, telling her how she'd lied about where she was, how she'd lied about her feelings, and how she'd been sneaking around with Tom during our supposed family holidays. Her reaction was classic Emily, bitchy, dismissive, and full of deflections. She started yelling, calling me insecure, accusing me of obsessing over her. She said I was overreacting, that she'd never do such a thing, that I was just jealous of Tom. That's when I finally saw her real face, the one she'd been hiding behind her bitchy attitude all along. She was manipulative, a liar, a cheating bitch who thought she was untouchable. I felt a surge of anger. I'd never been this furious, but I knew I had to stay composed to make her see she'd lost control. I told her she needed to leave that night. Her eyes narrowed, her tone turning even more bitchy. She said she didn't know what I was talking about, that I was blowing things out of proportion, that I was trying to ruin her. That was when I realized she'd always been good at twisting things, at making herself look innocent even when she was caught dead to rights. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I looked right into her eyes and told her she was done, done pretending, done lying. I was done pretending I didn't know the truth. As she packed her bags, she kept throwing those bitchy looks, calling me crazy or jealous or some other bullshit. She kept insisting she hadn't done anything wrong, that it was all a misunderstanding. But I saw through her. I knew she was just trying to save what little dignity she had left, even though she'd already destroyed everything. I decided I wouldn't beg her to stay or argue anymore. I told her she had until the morning to leave, and that was the end of it. That night I lay in bed, feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness. Part of me wanted to believe she'd come back and apologize, fix everything, but deep down I knew that wasn't happening. I'd caught her in her lies, exposed her manipulative bitchy side, and I'd finally taken control. I realized I'd wasted so much time trusting someone who didn't deserve it. My heart was hurt, sure. Betrayal cuts deep. But I'd also learned something I wish I'd known sooner. Never underestimate how far a person will go to lie, cheat, and manipulate. Looking back now, I see that I was naive for so long. I thought she loved me, but she only loved herself and her little secrets. I'm not sure if I'll ever fully trust again, but I do know that I'll never let someone treat me like that again. The pain of betrayal is a hell I wouldn't wish on anyone, but it's also a wake-up call. I don't regret standing my ground or catching her in her lies. If anything, I feel stronger now, more aware of what I deserve, and honestly, ready to start over. In the days that followed, I felt like I was walking through a fog. The house, now empty of her bitchy attitude and manipulative presence, was eerily quiet. I stayed there for a few days, trying to process everything: the betrayal, the lies, the way she'd so effortlessly broken the trust we'd built. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sneering, heard her dismissive words, felt the sting of her betrayal. It was like a punch to the gut that I wasn't sure I'd ever fully recover from. But somewhere in all that chaos, I found a strange sense of clarity. I realized I'd been so blind, so eager to trust her, that I'd overlooked all the warning signs. Now I knew better. I'd learned that some people, no matter how much you love them, will betray you just to satisfy their own selfish needs. Emily was one of those people, a selfish, manipulative bitch who thought she could lie, cheat, and get away with everything. But she couldn't. Not anymore. I also learned that revenge isn't about hurting someone just because they hurt you. It's about reclaiming your own dignity, standing up for yourself, and not letting someone else's lies define you. I don't regret exposing her, even if it hurt like hell. I don't regret seeing her for what she truly was, an unfaithful, bitchy woman who thought she was smarter than everyone else. Because now I know what I deserve and I refuse to settle for less. I've decided to move on. Not overnight, not without scars, but I'm determined to rebuild my life. I've already started focusing on myself, my job, my friends, my passions. I've cut out all the toxic bullshit that used to surround her. It's not easy. There are days when I feel like I'm back at square one. But I remind myself that I'm better off without her manipulations, without her bitchy attitude, without the lies. I deserve honesty, respect, and someone who actually cares about me. Looking back at everything, I wish I could tell anyone else going through something similar. Trust your gut. Don't ignore the red flags, no matter how much you love someone or how much you want it to work. People like Emily don't change. They just hide behind a pretty face and a bitchy attitude until they get caught. And when they do, don't be afraid to walk away. Because in the end, you're better off alone than with someone who treats you like garbage. So here I am, still healing, still angry sometimes, but also finally free. I've learned a hard lesson about love and betrayal, but I've also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I don't need her to define me or my happiness. I'll find someone who's worth my trust, someone who won't lie or cheat or manipulate. That's the real lesson. Never settle for anything less than true honesty and respect. Because if you do, you're just setting yourself up for more heartbreak. And I refuse to let her or anyone else do that to me again.